I sent my parents $500 every week and they ditched me for a beach trip. You ruin everything! Dad snapped, but the next morning my phone wouldn't stop exploding. When my phone started buzzing that morning, I thought maybe it was a wrong number. Or a work emergency. Anything but what it actually turned out to be. For years I had sent my parents $500 every single week. Rain or shine. Good week, bad week, it didn't matter. I sent it without fail, convinced that I was helping them stay afloat. Mom always said times were hard. Dad would mutter something about bills piling up. And I believed them because they were my parents. I told myself that dreams could wait. That I could always travel later, go back to school later, live later. For now, they needed me. But as I scrolled through my notifications that morning, one picture stopped me cold. There they were, Mom and Dad, sunburnt and grinning, standing on a white sand beach, cocktails in hand. Living our best life, the caption said, complete with laughing emojis. I stared at the screen, blinking, like maybe I'd misread it. Like maybe it was some sort of joke. But then came the next photo, Dad dancing in a Hawaiian shirt at a beach party, sunglasses askew. Mom splashing in the waves, wearing a brand new swimsuit I definitely hadn't seen before. And suddenly, the sinking feeling in my gut made perfect sense. They weren't struggling. They weren't barely making ends meet. They were partying on my dime. I sat there for a long time, just staring at the screen. Maybe there was an explanation, I thought. Maybe someone else paid for the trip. Maybe it was a gift. Maybe it wasn't even recent. But then I checked the timestamps. Posted 3 hours ago. There were more photos, too, dozens of them. Beach bonfires, late-night bar crawls, selfies with strangers who looked half their age. My parents were living like carefree teenagers on spring break. The worst one? A photo of my dad standing next to a giant seafood platter, holding up a lobster tail bigger than his head, with the caption, "Cheers to financial freedom." Financial freedom. Those words hit harder than any punch could have. Financial freedom bought with my sacrifices. The skipped dinners, the second jobs, the nights lying awake wondering if I'd ever get ahead. I felt something inside me, something I didn't even know was there, crack. I clicked on the comments, half hoping to find some explanation tucked away there. Instead, I found my mom replying to a cousin's comment about how amazing the trip looked. "Yeah, we're finally living for ourselves now. No more guilt trips, no more helping hands needed. Just us." No more guilt trips. No more helping hands. Just them. It wasn't even about the money at that point. It was what it represented. All these years I thought I was building a bridge between us, loyalty, gratitude, love. But to them, I had been nothing more than an open wallet. Still, like an idiot, I tried to reach out one last time. I picked up my phone and called my dad. It rang. And rang. And rang. Finally he answered, breathless, like he'd just come from laughing too hard. "Hey, what now?" he said, the impatience clear in his voice. I swallowed the lump in my throat. "I saw the pictures," I said quietly. There was a pause. Then a heavy sigh. And then, in a tone sharp enough to slice through steel, he snapped, "You ruin everything!" Before I could even form a response, he hung up. Just like that. The line went dead. And with it, so did any last pieces of hope I was foolish enough to hold on to. I set the phone down on the table, staring at it like it might somehow offer an explanation. But there was nothing. Just silence, and the slow, steady realization that the people I thought I was saving had never really cared whether I drowned in the process. I didn't sleep that night. I sat in the dark, phone buzzing every now and then with meaningless notifications, ads, spam, a few friends tagging me in memes, completely unaware that my entire world had just cracked in two. At around midnight, I opened the family group chat. I don't even know why I did it. Maybe some desperate, stubborn part of me still hoped there would be an explanation, an apology, something. But what I saw made my blood run cold. New messages. Pictures. More of them, on jet skis now, Dad wearing mirrored sunglasses and throwing a thumbs up to the camera, Mom sipping from a coconut with a little umbrella in it. Captioned, Living the dream. Finally free. Finally free. As if I had been the ball and chain keeping them down all this time. Something inside me broke then. Something deep. Something old. A thread I'd been clutching onto since childhood. This belief that maybe if I just tried hard enough, they would finally treat me like I mattered. I opened my gallery. One by one, I pulled up every screenshot. Every bank transfer. Every frantic message from them. Can you spot us this month? We're desperate, just this once. If you love us, you'll help. Hundreds of them. Years of them. And then I opened social media and started scrolling through their profiles, pulling every photo from their so-called struggling years, vacations, spa days, shopping sprees, fancy dinners. I hadn't wanted to believe it before. I told myself that sometimes people needed a little happiness even in hard times. That they deserved a break. But now I saw it for what it was. It had never been about survival. It was about entitlement. At 2 a.m, heart pounding, hands shaking slightly, I started typing. First, into the family group chat. I uploaded every screenshot, bank transfers, messages, photos, all laid bare, without commentary. Let the truth speak for itself. Then I wrote. You said you needed help? I gave it. You said you were struggling? I believed you. You said you loved me? I was foolish enough to think it was true. No more. Enjoy your freedom. This is mine. I hit send. The little, seen, indicators popped up almost instantly. No one replied. And I didn't wait for them to. I posted the same evidence to our extended family group, aunts, uncles, cousins, everyone who had ever wondered why I was always so tired, why I never had money for vacations, why I lived like a ghost while my parents floated through life. Let them all see. Let them know. And then, without waiting for the storm I knew was coming, I blocked my parents' numbers. Blocked their emails. Blocked them on every social media platform. I deleted the family group chats. I closed the last open window into a life that had never really included me. For the first time in years I slept. Not well. Not peacefully. But enough. Enough to know I had finally taken the first step toward choosing myself. When I woke up the next morning, my phone was already vibrating across the nightstand. Not just vibrating, it was practically dancing. 37 missed calls. 29 text messages. The family group chat, the extended one, had exploded overnight. Messages flying back and forth like shrapnel. Some of my cousins were furious on my behalf, sending messages like, "You don't deserve this. We had no idea what they were really doing. We're so sorry, man. We should have seen it sooner." But others, the ones who were closer to my parents, sent texts filled with anger, confusion, guilt trips masked as concern. "Family isn't supposed to air dirty laundry like that. You made your mom cry. This isn't how you fix things." And amidst it all, wedged between the chaos, a few quiet, desperate messages from my mother. "We didn't mean it the way it looked. Please call me. We can explain. You're being so cold. We're your family. You're our son." Each message chipped away at the anger I'd built up the night before. Not enough to break it down, but enough to make me sit there for a moment, staring at the screen, feeling the old instincts creep back in. The instinct to fix it. The instinct to forgive. The instinct to go running back, no matter how many times they pushed me away. But then I thought about all the years I had lost. All the dreams I had shelved. All the nights I spent staring at the ceiling wondering why nothing I did was ever enough. And I realized something brutal but freeing. They didn't love me the way I loved them. They loved what I did for them. There's a difference. It was like standing on a cliff and realizing the water below isn't deep enough to catch you. It was never going to catch me. It was never going to be safe. It was never going to change. I didn't reply to any of the messages. I didn't call. I didn't explain. Instead, I grabbed my laptop and started planning something I'd been putting off for years. A move. A fresh start. A real beginning. Not 5 minutes later, I had an appointment scheduled with a realtor. A one-bedroom apartment in a new city, a few hours away, Close enough if I ever wanted to visit people who actually cared, but far enough that the gravitational pull of guilt couldn't drag me back. No more $500 a week. No more last-minute money transfers. No more emotional blackmail. No more apologies for choosing myself. I was done patching a sinking ship. I was building my own. The silence didn't last long. By noon, my email inbox was a war zone. My cousins, the ones who had supported me at first, were forwarding me screenshots of messages from my parents. Emails filled with dramatic pleas, half apologies, and, most predictably, blame. We only did what we thought was best for the family. It's not fair for you to hold a few vacations over our heads after everything we've been through. You humiliated us. How could you betray your own parents like this? There it was. The real truth. It wasn't about what they had done to me. It was about what I had done to them. I had shattered the image they wanted everyone else to see, the struggling parents doing their best, the noble victims of hard times. And without me propping up the lie, they were just exposed. My Aunt Susan, one of the few people who had always seen through my parents' act, called me that evening. When I answered, I half expected another guilt trip, but instead, she just said, "Good for you." Those 3 words nearly knocked the air out of me. Simple. Solid. Like someone had finally handed me a life jacket when I didn't even realize I was still drowning. "You don't owe anyone anything," she said. "Especially not people who only show up with their hands out." We talked for over an hour. About old family stories, about her own battles with people who took advantage, about what real love and respect were supposed to look like. By the end of it, I felt lighter than I had in years. Meanwhile, my parents' spiral continued. Word was spreading. Fast. An uncle I hadn't spoken to in years messaged me. "You did the right thing. We always wondered where all that money was going." A cousin I barely knew added, "I'm sorry we didn't see it sooner. You deserve better." The house of cards my parents had spent years building, the carefully crafted image of noble struggle, of helplessness, of being owed support, was collapsing in on itself. And me? I wasn't standing underneath it anymore. For once, I was on the outside, watching it fall. And for the first time in a long, long time, I wasn't scared. The next few days passed in a strange, almost dreamlike haze. No more phone calls. No more desperate texts. No more guilt-laced voicemails clogging up my inbox. It was like someone had finally lifted a weight off my chest I hadn't even realized I'd been carrying for most of my life. I spent an entire Saturday just existing. No plans. No obligations. I walked around the city with a coffee in hand, letting the early spring sun warm my face, feeling like I was seeing everything for the first time. It's amazing, really, how different the world looks when you're not constantly bending under someone else's expectations. I started making lists. Not of things I owed anyone, but things I wanted for myself. Travel. A real savings account. A small business idea I'd been sketching out in half-finished notebooks for years but had always pushed aside because the timing wasn't right. Or the family needed me. No more excuses. The first thing I did was cancel the automatic transfer that sent $500 a week to my parents' bank account. There was something deeply satisfying about seeing that scheduled payment canceled notification pop up on my phone. Like closing the last page of a book that had taken too long to read. Next, I started apartment hunting seriously. Not just any apartment, a little place in a city where no one knew me as the guy who was always working 2 jobs to support his family. A place where no one expected anything from me except maybe to say good morning in the hallway. Every night after work, I scrolled through listings, picturing what my new life might look like. I wasn't just looking for a new place to live. I was looking for somewhere to belong, and for the first time, that place wasn't tied to someone else's demands. I wasn't naive. I knew cutting them off wouldn't be the end of it forever. There would be fallout. Rumors. Hurt feelings. Maybe even bridges burned so badly there was no rebuilding them. But oddly enough, none of that scared me. What scared me was the idea of waking up one day, 10 or 20 years from now, and realizing I had wasted my entire life waiting for people to love me the way I deserved. I wasn't waiting anymore. I was building something new. Something real. Something mine. And it felt terrifying. And thrilling. And unbelievably right. I should have known it wasn't over. About a week after I cut them off, right when I started feeling truly free, the final move came. A letter. A real, physical letter, not a text, not an email. The handwriting on the envelope was unmistakable. My mother's, neat and carefully looped, like she thought if she made it look sweet enough, I'd somehow forget everything. I almost didn't open it. Almost tossed it straight into the trash. But curiosity got the better of me. Inside, the letter was 3 pages long. The first page was a carefully constructed apology, the kind that said, "I'm sorry you felt hurt." But not, "I'm sorry for what we did." The second page was pure guilt. "We're getting older. We won't be around forever. Are you really willing to live with this guilt?" And the third page? That was the real heart of it. "We miss you. We need you. We're going through a really tough time right now. If you could just help out until we get back on our feet." There it was again. The same script, the same song, just a different costume. Apologize enough to make me lower my guard. Guilt me into believing I was cruel. And then, when the defenses cracked, slide the hand back into my pocket, back into my life, back into control. I folded the letter neatly and set it down. And then I did something that surprised even me. I didn't get angry. I didn't cry. I didn't feel a single spark of temptation to call them. I just smiled a little. Because I saw it clearly now. They hadn't written that letter because they missed me. They missed the version of me who said yes to everything. They missed the ATM. The safety net. The invisible son who never asked for anything back. But that person was gone. Standing by the window, I pulled out my lighter, the same one I kept from an old camping trip years ago, and lit the corner of the letter. Watched as the paper curled, blackened, and turned to ash. It didn't feel like revenge. It didn't feel like anger. It felt like release. As the last ember died in the ashtray, I whispered something, just for myself. "I don't owe you anything anymore." And for the first time in my entire life, I believed it. The next few weeks felt strangely quiet, almost too quiet. I kept expecting some final dramatic move. Another call. Another letter. Some relative showing up at my door with a rehearsed speech about family and forgiveness. But it never came. They finally stopped. Maybe because they realized it wasn't working anymore. Maybe because they moved on to find someone else to lean on. Maybe they just didn't know how to handle someone they couldn't guilt anymore. Either way, the silence was a gift. I moved into my new apartment a month later, a tiny place on the 3rd floor of an old building, nothing fancy, but when I turned the key for the first time, it felt like unlocking a whole new life. No framed family photos. No memories I had to explain away. Just blank walls, open windows, and space that was mine. On my first night there, I sat on the floor eating takeout straight from the container, watching the city lights flicker through the window, and for the first time, I didn't feel alone. I felt free. They had taken so much from me over the years. Money. Time. Trust. But they hadn't taken me. And now, I was finally learning who that person was without them. It's funny how you don't realize how deep a wound runs until you stop trying to cover it up. For years I had told myself stories to survive. They're doing their best. They love me, they just don't know how to show it. If I keep giving, someday they'll appreciate it. But the truth was sharper, colder, and somehow more liberating. Some people love what you do for them, not who you are. And once you stop doing, the illusion shatters. At first, that truth broke something inside me. I grieved the family I thought I had. Grieved the parents I had built up in my head, the ones who never really existed outside of my hopes. It was a deep kind of sadness, like standing in the ruins of a house you spent your whole life trying to build, realizing it was never going to be finished, never going to be a home. But after grief, came clarity. I realized that love, real love, doesn't come with ledgers and price tags. It doesn't throw your sacrifices back in your face when you finally say no. It doesn't vanish the moment you stop handing over pieces of yourself. And most importantly, love isn't something you should ever have to earn. I spent so long thinking my worth was tied to what I could give, to how much I could sacrifice, to how small I could make myself to fit into spaces that were never meant for me. But not anymore. Now I give because I want to, not because I'm afraid someone will leave if I don't. Now I choose who gets a seat at my table. Now I understand that sometimes walking away isn't cruel, it's the purest form of self-respect there is. If I could go back and talk to the version of me who sent that first $500 all those years ago, I wouldn't tell him he was stupid. I wouldn't tell him he was weak. I would tell him this: you have a good heart. But someday, you'll learn that not everyone deserves a front row seat to it. And that doesn't make you bad. It makes you brave. And to anyone else out there, sitting in that same place, wondering if choosing yourself makes you selfish, let me tell you, it doesn't. It makes you free.